And Professor Coquino, again, feel free. I would love to have you, and all three of you are able to make it. That'd be great to have your input. And then I think Tammy, we we're adding this video maker series, attaching it to the other workshops. So now there's total of 7, and if you participate in all 7, we are going to give a badge to those who attend, and we can also talk about that later on. So to start off, I just want to ask if anybody can put on the chat or even talk and mention what kind of videos are you looking to. Our class is, it could be like a video or a lecture presentation. If you can just put something on the chat and say, what is it that you're really looking to do? So because Michael and I, what we're going to do is we're going to show you what we do, our workflow in creating videos. And by the end of the 3-part series, everyone who participates should come out of this mini workshop or mini series with a video. And then we'll create an exhibition at the end where we can all share our videos in a Padlet. So feel free to go ahead and in the chat put what type of video you're interested in doing. Is it like an introduction video, a course overview, or are you looking to create lecture videos for your class? So please go ahead and if you can type in there in the chat so that we can all see what type of videos you are interested in creating. By the end of this workshop, we'll all do something. Okay, I see demo video. I see Martin is saying introduction video, lecture videos. Nobuko is saying introduction videos and also lecture videos. Okay, that's good to hear, because Michael and I are going to also talk about creating videos that are talking head videos, and we'll explain more in detail later what is a talking head video. We're also going to talk about videos that have your slides as you narrate over your slides. And then we're also going to talk about demonstration videos, which are a little different. Okay. All right. So that's Michael. I don't know if you got to see a little bit there, but most people are interested in like demo, introduction videos, lecture videos, and those type of videos.
What I find also works really nicely is feedback videos. So when you get student projects, instead of just marking them up in Blackboard or whatever, the idea of kind of running through it with a a feedback video where you're actually on camera, kind of going through the project, it really helps them engage with your comments and kind of really see your criticism and your critique and constructive. And I always give them a second chance to do it after they look at that, and I find that it really kind of cements a lot of the learning objectives. So
yeah, can you tell us a little bit about how you do your feedback videos? Like, do the students reach out to you or is it based on the assignments and you notice something, a student submits, let's say, an assignment, and then you do a quick video and you respond that way? Is that mostly the way you use feedback videos?
Typically, yes. I mean, I always use Screencast-O-Matic to do them, and I run through the student project and kind of go through things that are pitfalls or things that I think could be reworked or improved. Certainly, whenever a student actually comes forward first and says, "Hey, I submitted this. Is there a way I can improve my grade or something like that?" Those I will always make sure that I give them some kind of feedback video, because I feel that the student is already taking the first step. They're motivated. They want the feedback, and I find that that's usually fruitful too. Like when you give them the feedback, they'll be like, "Oh, I had an epiphany moment when I watched your video. I really appreciated it." And that's really, I think, a lot of that feedback from them saying, "Well, I really enjoyed watching your video," is what kind of spurred me on to keep making them and make more of them.
Yeah, and I also want to add to that, Michael, is for a first timer using Screencast-O-Matic or any of the other tools that we'll talk about later, to think about creating videos as a feedback tool for a new person using videos, it might seem a little daunting and saying, well, that seems like a lot of work, but when I saw how you were using it and how quickly you were making these videos, I want you to at least like explain to how the process and does it take you very long to make these videos? Because you made a lot. I've seen a lot of your feedback in them. It's amazing.
Well, I mean, like anything, the first cut is the deepest. So, I mean, it's a little daunting at first thinking, oh, and how am I going to look on the video? How am I going to sound? And how am I going to present the students' work and my critique and everything? But I think once you're doing it, it's familiarized in a good way. Not that they're all like kind of rote and, repetitive. The process is pretty much the same. And, I started even thinking about making them a little bit more entertaining, after we spoke, Jose, the idea of, instead of just kind of, critique, doing little things like adding music or adding even a couple of sound effects in there, making it a little bit more YouTube-esque, because that's what, our students, are used to, kind of, delivery with that kind of thing. So something that's short, I always make sure I keep them under 5 minutes for sure. And, so a lot of times you have to kind of look at the project. I'll kind of critique the project on paper first. So it almost becomes my script. And then, I'll work through the project with Screencast-O-Matic. And most of the time, it's just a screen with my voice.
Right.
So, but I find that, spending a little bit of extra time to do like a little intro where you're on camera, also enhances the whole experience for the students to get that engagement and to actually see you, interacting instead of that almost radio voice. It definitely makes it more personable.
Right.
So.
It also to add, teaching an online course, you always want to humanize the course. You want the students to know who you are, and as well, you want to know your students' voices. And another benefit of also doing what Professor Coquino is doing is that sometimes, depending on the subject matter, what you're teaching, a lot of it is hard to describe. Let's say you're teaching an online course and you're writing feedback, and it's depending on what you're teaching, again, it could be very there's Photoshop, you got to go here, go to File, click, as opposed to writing it down, you can easily demonstrate it with a quick video, and I think that students really appreciate
Right.
those step-by-steps. I'm going to share. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Michael.
Well, I was just going to say they're really visual learners, so they certainly appreciate that. And then also from my end, I think once I started doing it, I found that it was easier than writing up a critique. Once you got it rolling, and you just roll the camera, and you do a critique with an audio commentary. I get it better than I would have if I would have been reading it.
Patricia makes a great point. She says, yes, students may not want to read a lengthy critique. I've seen professors now that actually do a video of the syllabus, and they go through the syllabus as they're going through each section of the syllabus. As a good point Patricia makes, that sometimes reading the lengthy critique is not what they.
Yeah. And the syllabus, another thing that's great is the frequently asked questions. So this way, you'll get that, and you could make a video of that, and then when students start coming back, or less of them will keep coming back to you saying, well, when is it due, or whatever. You just have this frequently asked question thing, and the ones who aren't watching it either, because they'll ask you the question over and over again through email or whatever.
Oh yeah, it's a constant email chain.
I see you didn't watch my video.
That's a good point. I'm going to share with everyone we're going to be working off of this presentation that Michael and I are going to be talking over these points. Now, the link is in the chat. Feel free to go ahead and click on that link. It will take you to our talking points for today, and also going on forward to our next workshop 2 and workshop 3. And I'm going to share my screen, but please feel free to use that link if you feel it helps you in any way. We're going to be adding all the video recordings into that page, so it's constantly being updated. So keep an eye out for that. It's a Spark page. We built it on Adobe Spark, and it's going to have all the resources in one place, so that you can always come back to it if you ever need to refer to something that Michael and I covered today, or in our second workshop, the third one. So this is going to be our base. So let me share my screen, because Michael, you covered a lot of things that we're going to break down now. So this is great. You did a nice opener there. We're going to we're going to cover a lot of those things that you mentioned. And here is my screen. I hope everybody can see that.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
We're there.
Okay, I do want to mention that a lot of this content I will attribute back to Columbia University. When I worked there, I was a big part of the video team, and I helped them build a lot of the content that we use for video best practices. So I will refer back. I will give them attribution to a lot of the content that we're going to be using today. So I just want to mention that in our video. Michael, you want to talk about storyboarding? Do you use storyboarding on your videos?
Yes, well, I'm in the advertising, marketing, communications department. So storyboarding is really a key component in a lot of our prerequisite classes, like copywriting, where students are writing copy, but they're writing it for a visual medium, such as video or a web page. So the idea of having the kind of connection between the audio and video and the synchronization of the two events happening simultaneously in a multimedia, you really need to be able to storyboard it. It's also a great communication tool that you can use if you are, trying to visualize with a team, or in pre-production where you're planning and you're working with a team or even a client. Before you start spending big money or spending a lot of time producing a video, you can solve a lot of the problems on paper, and you can also just save a lot of corrections later, where someone will say, well, let's do it this way instead of that way, and then you don't even have to bark up the wrong tree, because you've got the storyboard already approved. So I think they're a key tool, and I have my students make sure that they do a storyboard for all of their assignments. I teach video production in the department too, so when we're doing social media video or something like that, we make sure that everything is done on paper first and kind of fleshed out before we execute any studio work.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. Also, from the teacher's perspective, I'm going to mute everyone because I just want to make sure these recordings have clean audio. So let me just, for the time being, if you do have a question, please feel free to raise your hand and then turn on your mic. But for now, I'm just going to mute everyone. And Michael, please turn on your mic back on. I just want to add to what Michael just said, because from a teacher's perspective, we're going to talk about, Michael mentioned he likes to keep his videos nice and short, right? About 5 to 7 minutes. And for some faculty, that doesn't make sense, because usually a lecture goes on for maybe an hour, 2 hours, to 3 hours. So, right away as a professor, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, how am I going to convert a 2-hour lecture presentation to a 5-minute video? And that's not what we're saying here. What we're saying is basically, with the term chunking, what that means is that the videos are going to be broken up into the learning objectives or specific topics that you're going to cover, and so you're going to target certain items that you're going to just cover within those 5 minutes. It's not the whole 2-3 hour lectures converted into a 5-minute video, and that's not what we're talking about here. And so by storyboarding and using storyboarding, you will then be able to kind of, okay, well, now I know I'm going to talk about, how to change the oil in the car, whatever it is that you're teaching. And so now with storyboarding, that kind of helps you plan what it is that you're going to cover, so that your video stays within that range, right, of 5 minutes to 7 minutes. And so that's basically where storyboarding will come in handy. Patricia, let me go back to your question. Yes, exactly. So exactly what Patricia said right here, right? So basically, you're going to have a grouping of individual videos in progression of the whole lecture. Exactly. Better. That's a better way to put it. And this is where storyboarding can really help you, because as a professor, you know that you can easily go on, because we're, sometimes when we're with the task of filling 2 hours of content, we got to put it all in there. But sometimes we don't know, sometimes you run out of material, you just got to go on and on. But in this case, it's much different, because this is very specific and targeted to using up your 5 minutes in a concise, precise way of saying, okay, this is what we're going to talk about. These are the learning objectives that I'm going to cover in this 5-minute video. And so basically, that's where storyboarding can really help you. Michael, I put in here a template that you guys can easily download. If it helps you, you can click on the storyboard template and download it to your computer. It's a Word doc. And I also included in here an example storyboard that you can also have. And as you can see, actually, I think I created this one when I was working at Columbia. That's funny. I didn't even know it until I looked at it right now. I actually made this one. So here, as you can see, you can put a visual. In this case, it could be, if you're doing a demonstration video, it could be, let's say, a stitching or a sewing. If you're sewing a garment, you can put a picture here to remind you that when you are showing them how you're going to be doing the stitching, then you can say a few words or talking points at that moment. And this is how you can storyboard. Michael, do you want to mention anything about this example here, or you want to?
I think it's a great example. I think there's lots of ways that you can do it. You can just mock it up on paper. You can have all kinds. I mean, there's all kinds of sites like storyboarder.com where you can get a free account and do some basic stuff. Again, if you're working with a team, using Google Slides or PowerPoint and be able to collaborate like that can work really well. And then to go back to something you were saying before about like the sequencing and taking that 4-hour or whatever 3-hour lecture. I think in a lot of ways, these videos can highlight some of the really pertinent points, or again, things that students will come back and ask questions all the time. So for instance, to just give an example, I'm doing a lecture on Microsoft Word, and you could lecture on Word forever. It's so bloated, it does everything, right? But the idea is that after that lecture that I might do in a synchronous kind of Blackboard class, I'll post a less than 5-minute video on a point like setting tabs, because I know that students will always make mistakes and not do that part correctly. So, it's like that point of contention that if you can really draw them that picture through the, the planning of a storyboard and then the execution of a video, it really enhances their understanding of it. So, and I know we have lots of different courses that have all this minutia in labs and dealing with equipment and software and things like that. So I think it comes in really handy in that area to kind of pick a certain point like that.
That's an excellent point, Michael. And the other thing I want to mention is that, again, we've been promoting the flipped classroom model, right? And so if you decide to actually, go with the flipped classroom model, if you cover those, like Michael's saying, those are really important points in the video that the students will watch on their own time, then you don't really have to cover all the details, because when they come back into the classroom, you can really now talk about, one-on-one with students. That the time that you freed up that normally would go to those lectures can now be freed up so that you can actually talk to your students about where are they struggling, what was difficult for them to understand. And we call these muddiest points, where you can actually sit down one-on-one with your students or in a group setting and say, okay, you guys watch the lectures at home. Now in the classroom, let's do more group activity type of things. And so if you focus on those really important things, I always use the analogy of a baseball coach, where in the baseball coach, what they do is sometimes they'll give the fundamentals in video, and they'll give the players the videos. Okay, this is how you throw the ball, or this is how you do, the very fundamentals, the basics. And then when they come into the practice, then the coach is really looking to see who is struggling where, and now you can really focus that otherwise lecture time that you would have used for lecture. Now you can really pinpoint on the students who really need the help.
Right. Or take it to the next level and really give them the more advanced kind of insights that you may not have had time for before, because you're kind of going over, a simple process over and over again. And,
right.
Once you've got that video too, it's archived, so that if a student is, wants to relearn it or just revisit it, they've always got it in their archive. It doesn't have to be something they're only going to see once. They can watch it over and over again. If they, are having trouble setting those tabs, let me revisit that video and see exactly how he did it or she did it.
Oh, yeah.
That works.
The students love the fact that they can go back into a video, rewind, pause. You might have a student whose English is not their first language, right? And even having the captions, and we're going to talk about captions in a moment, but even having the captions that will help them understand the video and the subject matter, again, for them, this is something that's gold, being able to rewind and watch. When I was in school, I remember I used to bring my little tape recorder and ask the professor for permission to record, and I would go home and play back the lecture and try to, you know, absorb it, because it's hard to take in 2 hours or 3 hours of lecture time and try to take it all in one big sitting. It's just very hard. And so, like Michael said, having this luxury to be able to go back and watch these videos, for the students, it's a big plus for them. And for you as a professor, depending on your subject matter and how much it changes, you can reuse this material for semesters going forward. And we know it is a lot of front load work, but like I said, I know professors who are using their videos over and over, you know, until the material doesn't be, it's still relevant. Until then you can make a new video. But it's worth the investment. Michael,
Absolutely.
you want to talk
I think
about script?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, having obviously a script is a way to organize your execution, and there's different ways around it. One of the things that you can do is a real-time script and kind of outline it so that you are, comfortable with the material. You never really want to read from that script, I found, because a script for your educational video will help condense and organize your content, adopt a conversational tone. Well, when you're reading, you're never going to have a conversational tone. So I think, by doing a script where it's more of an outline, where you have key terms like organized content, or just organize, conversational tone, and this way you use that to help you ad-lib through your video, really helps. And then I would say the other kind of pivotal factor here, and the magic of doing this once you get a little comfortable with the editing process, is that you don't have to shoot it in sequential order, because you're in control of cutting out your mistakes, changing the order, highlighting the material in a post-production environment. So if I'm in a script, I don't have to start from the beginning, go to the middle and the end. I can do the points that are more complicated first, or I can, do the middle first and then do the intro outro later. And I find that, that's an easy way then, once I go to edit them together, just to kind of piece it together. And, for instance, I make mistakes all the time. I'm doing this script and I'm like, take 2, take 3. And then I'll just look at the video and say, well, I know I did that one, the better one, in take 4. So I can just go right to that part, cut everything else out, and end up with a more polished look than if I was trying to do it linearly from beginning to end, which is like a marathon. Now, obviously, in a real face-to-face, real-time class, you're, kind of forced to do it that way. But when you're doing these kind of asynchronous videos, you can do it for your own comfortable convenience in the way that you script it, in the way that you shoot it. So after the script, then you might come up with what we call a shot sheet, where I'll say, okay, here's a shot of me introducing it, where I'm on camera, maybe setting up a little story for the students, and then here's a screen grab, and then here's a little video of the software, you know what I mean? And then you put them all together, and then in the outro, again, it might be me on camera saying, well, if you have any questions, be sure to, follow up with an email or something like that. And, I shot the 4 segments separately, but when I put them together, they have a cohesive kind of flow to them. So, and again, it's the script that brings that together.
Yeah, Michael, you brought up a lot of important points, and I just want to break down a couple of those things. The first thing is not shooting in a linear fashion, right? You mentioned that it has to have to start from the beginning, and so that's another thing. As a teacher, we have to break out, right? You made a great example, because you're in a face-to-face class and you're teaching in front of the classroom. You have no choice. You have to start from the beginning to the end. I mean, you can move things around and make some sense of it, but at the end of the day, you don't have the flexibility, like you mentioned, that you can go into the editing room and then move things around, or start at the end, record at the middle, wherever. You have that flexibility when you're recording asynchronous videos. So that's super important to think about, because that would change your whole perspective of delivering a lecture now. You have this power. And so think about that carefully as you're storyboarding, or as you're getting ready to record your videos, that you can always go back in there and move things around and make changes. But we're not going to move that forward, because we are going to do the production workshop later on. So we'll hold on that for a moment. The other thing I want to mention that you brought up, which is very crucial, is reading from the script. And I totally agree with Michael. I filmed so many interviews and I've done so many videos where I have someone in front of me and I have a teleprompter and they're just like robots. They're just reading it, you know. And so from a teacher's perspective, if you're doing a lecture and you have slides and you're basing it on slides, you can always have those talking points on the slides themselves, right? So that you know, cues as to, okay, here's a picture. This is telling me not to talk about the next topic or move on. Or we're going to have a special guest. I think it's going to be in our next workshop. Steve Keaton from the Writing and Speaking Studio. He's going to come in and he's going to talk about just that, right? How to get your slides ready for presenting. And so he's going to talk more into that. So I'm going to hold back a little bit on that. But I believe scripting is important because, again, as professors or teachers or whatever you're doing a video on, it's easy for us to, if we don't have something on paper letting us know, okay, I'm going to start here and I'm going to go to this and I'm going to stop at that point, it's very easy to move on and ramble about other things that are not really necessary. So just
or forget to include something that is really critical.
That happens to me all the time, Michael. I make a video and I forgot, oh my gosh, I forgot to mention this point. But remember now, like Michael mentioned, and we're going to cover this in production, where we're actually going to show you, we're going to do a lot of hands-on later on, where we're going to actually go into a video, we're going to do splicing, we're going to show you how to move things around. And so we're going to we will cover that. And if you do forget something, we'll show you using Screencast-O-Matic how you can actually record you forgot and add it somewhere into the video. Okay. We're doing good with time, right? Half hour. So I want to talk about. We're not going to do too much hands-on today. At the end, I'm going to reserve another hour for those who need help registering their accounts with Screencast-O-Matic. So I will have an hour after our presentation to cover those questions. If you do want to stay behind and ask Michael and I questions, I will be able to stay. I don't know, Michael, you're going to be able to stay after too, but I will stay another extra hour to help anyone to create their accounts if they haven't yet so with Screencast-O-Matic. The next topic I really want to cover real quick. I don't want to go too deep into this, but it's what's called cognitive overload. It's easy for us to, even with slides as we're presenting, and Steve will cover a little bit about this too later on, so I don't want to go too deep into this, but there's a chart in here demonstrating how if you're going to use words, you're going to use text, audio, music, visuals, it could be overwhelming for a student, as you can, what's the word? You can overload these sensors, right? As you're looking.
Sensory overload.
Sensory overload. Thank you, Michael. So Michael, you want to talk a little bit about how to avoid sensory overload, and really, he also talk about also how you, because I've seen you do this, I've seen how you create your screen capture videos, but you really use the pointer or the yellow circle to, like as a hotspot, to draw the attention of the eye.
Right. Well, I mean, if you're looking at a software, like Microsoft Office, you've got all the icons and the menus, and you really want to kind of drive their attention to the most important part. And I guess the combination of multimedia can actually be confusing if it's not woven together exactly right. You know what I mean? It's like listening to two people at the same time. You really can't understand what's going on from either of them. So it's the idea of kind of, I guess, pacing and structuring between the audio and video so that they really support each other instead of, confuse each other, confuse the issue. And, I guess it goes really back to the scripting too, where you're kind of thinking about, well, when they're seeing this, what am I saying? And I think, I would probably, say this again later on in our other workshops, but I would have to say that the audio portion of these videos is probably much more important, although the video, of course, everybody thinks the video, and the lights, camera, action, but really when you boil it down, most of the information that you are conveying is going to be in the audio track. And you really want to make sure that, when you do a script, there are two ways to kind of think about that. And one is audio follow video, and the other one is video follow audio. So the idea of kind of writing a script that has a narration kind of to it, narrative kind of, and then enhancing that narrative with the visuals instead of the other way around, where you already have your visuals and you're kind of watching them and saying, and now you're looking at this. Well, it's pretty obvious, you know? So I think really driving it first with the content in a audio kind of realm, and then supporting that audio with the video, for me, I think works better as a teaching and a learning tool. So just the idea of the way you you sequence it, and you just like the idea of synchronizing it too. That, you know, obviously when you're doing it live, you have the control of really focusing their attention in two ways, with what you're saying and also with what you're showing. So, you know, the idea of kind of bringing both of those items on stage at the same time, I think really hits on a point for them to have a better takeaway.
Right. Again, I got to second that. You bring up an excellent point, which is audio should be treated even higher, right, than video at some point, because again, I can see a great movie that's filmed, you know, with the high-end camera, but then there's like, you know, noise in the audio track, and then it's so distracting that you can't even pay attention to the movie you're watching.
Right.
So very, very, very important. I know that could be difficult depending where you are and where you live, is to find a place, you know, in your home or wherever you are that you can find a place that you don't have a background noise. You know, you don't have cars honking in the background. You know, it might be tough depending where you are, where you live, and your family. And you know, I have kids, so sometimes I end up in the bathroom. You know, and sometimes I'm like, wait a second, actually, this is pretty good. Actually,
I do some of my best work there.
Right, right. But even then, I'll have the kids knocking on the door, like, okay, Daddy, where are you? Like, we know you're in there, you know. So it's you know, so it is a challenge. But I tell you, you know, having a good microphone, investing in a microphone. We're going to talk a little bit about hardware in a moment. You know, what's a good microphone to invest in, and so. But I highly, highly agree. Audio has to be nice and clean. It doesn't have to be perfect, and I'm a victim of this, because I've done so much editing in my video editing in my life that sometimes I find it hard to let go of a project. It's like your little baby, and you're hearing some ums and ahs, and you're like, oh, I said like too many times. So it's a careful balance between who you are, your personality. I've come to accept that I mumble sometimes, and I get stuck in my words sometimes, and that's who I am. And I'm like, okay, at some point I have to let go of my video. I can't remove all the ums and the ahs. This is who I am. When I was doing workshops in the summer during the pandemic that we just went through, my daughter would just jump in out of nowhere, Daddy, can I have ice cream? You know, and I was like, oh my gosh, the whole presentation is ruined. My daughter just jumped in, and it came out like, you know, people were into it. Like, this is who I am. I have teachers who have pets that show up, the cats, you know, they become characters in your movie, you know. And so don't get too critical, and don't get too stuck on those things. It's gonna happen. You're gonna have little boo-boos left and right. It's never a perfect recording session, you know.
Right.
So right.
But
so,
I mean, you know, I just want to say you want to embrace those boo-boos, because I think
yes.
that this is the greatest way that you will actually, first of all, know that you're making, you know, like if you watch back your video and you realize, gee, you know, I'm saying a lot of connector words like that's the first step in really knowing that you know, in getting rid of those. So you know what's going on. And then the other thing is that the fixes that you learn. You know, someone mentioned, Patricia, that the music might be too loud. Well, once you realize, you know, how I'm going to set the music level so that it's not stepping on my voice, then, you know, you learn how to do a sound design, and you know, all your videos future will benefit from those pitfalls. So don't be afraid to make mistakes when you do this. And I think, you know, our students are very kind of welcoming and forgiving. You know, as long as the video is halfway decent, you know, they're going to be able to, you know, work around some of those little, you know, glitches in there. And some of them almost become, like you said, like, you know, endearing and darling, you know, put your, you know, your dog on camera or something.
You mentioned one really, really cool thing I want to talk about, Michael. You mentioned learning from your mistakes. You know, teaching in a face-to-face classroom, you got the adrenaline kicking in. You got all these things happening at one moment that by the end of the lecture or by the end of the class, you can't even remember what you just said,
Hmm.
right? It's like a blur. It's a time and it's just you can't even think of what did I say. But when you go back and you record your videos and you listen to them, you start realizing many things, nuances, oh, I do this, or I do that. But not only that, it makes you a better teacher because then you go back and say, well, when I was teaching face to face, I don't remember I used to say this, or I didn't know what I was saying. It was such an adrenaline kick. I'm like rushing through and making sure I cover everything. But that's another benefit of recording your videos is the fact that you can go back and watch yourself teach and improve on it.
Absolutely. Yeah, you really become your own critic, and I think it's it's the best way to hone your art. Once you see yourself the way your students are going to see you, so
Right.
that's the essence right there.
Now, Michael, you talked earlier about making your videos engaging. You talked about, maybe changing your tone, the way you speak, or even bringing in lesson hooks. Are there any some points or key takeaway that you want to mention on it, making videos engaging?
Well, I think, looking at just the language of the medium. So, if you look at videos from 20 years ago, what's different about, what you're going to be seeing today? I think one of the things might be the idea of fast editing. People
Mhm.
like fast editing. So obviously you can't do that through your whole lecture. If you're doing a longer lecture video, we could certainly atomize it where you make a whole bunch of shorter videos. What I find is a little bit of a mix. Like I think the idea of maybe starting out with a little bit of a YouTube-esque video that has a couple of interesting quick cuts before you get to the meat of the matter, where you go into a longer kind of sequence or a longer shot of you really kind of giving them the material, but at least it's packaged in a way that makes it more palatable. It catches their attention in the beginning.
Mhm.
And then, the multimedia experience, we talked about the idea of the video and the audio, but there's also lots of things. I mean, they're parts of that. The idea of like when you say a certain, a really important point, there's a little sound effect, like
Mhm.
almost like a cinematic, dun-dun-dun-dun, like, and it
Yeah.
just kind of like, it's humorous in a way, but it's a memory thing for them, so
Mhm.
they'll remember it, or just enhancing with overlays. So
Yeah.
while you're making, a certain, series of points, you've got some text on the screen, captions, but also, it could be other, graphics and things like that that appear over your shoulder and whatever. So I think those things really make it, a little bit more engaging and a little bit more focused. Where when you see those things, obviously you catch their attention a little more when
Mhm.
they see them. So they're looking for motion, they're looking for editing, they're listening for sound changes, things like that. So you can use those things to punctuate and also accentuate what you think is the critical takeaways again.
Yeah, I can tell you definitely from the marketing department because these visual cues that you can implement in your videos could be subliminal at times. Like you're watching a McDonald's commercial, you hear da 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 da. You already know it's McDonald's. So this is what Michael's talking about. These are cues that you can bring into your video. They could be audio, visual, so that once you get students to understand when this little sound comes up, oh, now we're doing discussion, or now we're moving on to whatever that is. So that's also important to do audio cues and visual cues in your videos. Um, also, Michael, you want to talk about a little bit about the difference between a talking head video? What is a talking head video as opposed to, maybe we can talk about, okay, this is what would be a good situation to use a talking head video as opposed to then using something where now is just like a picture-in-picture type of video?
Right. I think again, it's you can help yourself envision this when you're kind of doing the creative side of it. So before you actually even start on the storyboard, you're going to have a vision of what your movie or your video or your commercial or your little teaching uh, piece is going to be like. And think about, well, what part of it is the best communicator at this time. So if you're trying to explain, how to set some kind of, cue in the software, obviously you want a screenshot or something like that. But if you're explaining why, this would work in a real world scenario, it might be better for you to introduce it full screen on camera, as if you were just, having a conversation with your students. So, it's kind of like the way to bring them in. I would say, it's pretty obvious, like the opening of your video might be that talking head shot, where it's a little bit more approachable, it's a little bit more conversational. And then after that, you get down into the software or the grid or the, PowerPoint or whatever you're showing. And of course, you can still keep yourself on screen as a thumbnail, which I think, helps too, because they're not just hearing you then, they're, also seeing you, and they're getting a little bit of, like you said, Jose, almost subliminal cues from your inflection and your gesturing and your expression and things like that. Like, oh, he looks like he's saying something that might be on the exam or whatever, when you're kind of, lecturing and, pointing out something that might be important, either, by using some type of visual gesture. So I think that, being on screen is good all the time, but there's certain points where you want to be on full screen in that talking head look.
Exactly right. So if you're teaching a class online and these are the things that you normally in a face-to-face classroom, you can read the professor's gestures or body movement. This is something that might, going to be hard for students to adapt, especially if they've never taken an online class before, not being able to read the professor. Like Michael just said, this is going to be in the exam. And so depending on your tone of your voice and your facial expressions, that can also be used by the students to understand, hey, this is important. I better pay attention to what he's saying about X, Y, Z. I also want to mention real quick about Khan Academy style, including images or even having an iPad, a mini iPad or one of those where you can actually draw and use the pen tool to actually draw on the screen. So that's also doable. So think of your subject matter and don't just think, I have to only do it this way. There are many different ways, approaches, and you can always reach out to me or Michael if you have any questions of how should I approach or how should I shoot my video, and we will be happy to give you advice depending on your subject matter, what would be the best way to do it. Real quick, I just want to cover these last few things before you record, right? And so we did cover already some of this, but this is like the really basic stuff. We talked about room consideration, right? Make sure the room is quiet as possible. You don't want to have unwanted noise such as air conditioning and other things or other hums. If you're going to use Screencast-O-Matic to record, let's say you're teaching Photoshop or you're recording from your screen, you want to make sure there's nothing, that might be embarrassing on your computer desktop, right? You don't want to open up the grade book while you're recording the screen because then you're going to expose all your students' grades. Things like that. You want to be mindful that you have you don't want to have a background that's of your family or something that's might be a little bit embarrassing, or you don't want to share those kind of things with your audience. We also, if you're going to be recording a talking head video, you want to avoid a cluttered background, right? You want to make sure that you're the focus. You might even want to blur the background, right? Depending what is the focus. You're speaking to the camera, you want them to focus on you. You don't want them to see your books on the library behind you or something that could be distracting. The TV could be in the background. I had a professor one time lecturing a talking head video, and the TV was on the background. And like, do I look at the professor? Do I look at the TV in the background? Any tips on that, Michael?
Yeah, well, certainly. I mean, obviously, you want them to keep their attention on you. So, having weird distractions in the background, especially things like a television, because we're attracted to light and motion. So something that's constantly changing like that is going to keep distracting them from you if it's not related. But sometimes people don't realize things like a lot of times I'll see professors will have a bright window behind them. And that bright window just, becomes the center point of focus. It's also making them look dark because that window is so bright. The camera is saying, I better expose for that. And then everything else in the foreground starts looking really dark. So
right.
A neutral background is definitely, here's a good example of that, right? Where you get almost this silhouette look. You still have a bright background in the right shot, but I think what's happening is there's a lot more front lighting. And
right.
I would say even still, that window in the background, if I could pull the shade down or if I could change the angle, might be better not to have that super bright, background behind you. Just a little bit too intense. I mean, the second shot looks like it was well kind of lit in the front to make it work.
Right.
But obviously, the other one is like the criminal professor who doesn't want to be identified.
Right, you done something wrong. But also, you can fix these. You can fix this being backlit with a simple lamp at home. If you have something at home that you can use, and make sure that you have that light bounce off your face so that you're well lit, right? And so
Right.
instead of being backlit. Real quick, Michael, we also want to talk about where you position the camera, right?
Yeah.
In this case right here, you can see the camera's way low, and you
Right.
can see up her nose, right? And so that's not an attractive shot that you want to have. So you want to talk about that too,
Yeah,
Michael?
yeah, absolutely. Can you guys see my image now? If you could look at my image large, I'll just point out a couple of things to you. So the angle obviously is important, and the angle communicates things. So if you're looking at someone from above, you kind of make them look less significant and smaller. So you certainly don't want to do that. And a lot of times people will hold their laptop on their lap, and then everything they do, every little move they make, you get this kind of effect. And they don't realize that they're sitting there with the laptop on their lap and it's bouncing all over the place. So you want to make sure that you don't use it as a laptop. You put it on a stable thing. The other thing is the rule of thirds. So again, if you do something like that, where you're kind of giving yourself way too much negative space above your head. I'm obviously, accentuating it a little too much, but it makes you look smaller and less significant. You don't want to cut off your head by the same thing. So if your eyes are kind of on the upper third of the screen here, the rule of thirds, it kind of gives you the most pleasing shot. Maybe you don't want to be directly in the center. You can, throw yourself off a little bit like that. The other thing is, where is your camera? And, I find myself doing this a lot where, I'm looking at the screen. I'm not looking at the camera. See the difference? When I look at the screen, I'm really not looking at you when you're watching me. But when I look right into my camera, you can see that I have better eye contact, and better eye contact means better engagement for your students. So I actually have like a little sticker where my camera is with a cutout and a smiley face, which helps to remind me, where I'm looking, especially when I want to drive a point across. And there's nothing worse than the nose cam in that one shot there where, again, if you have a high table or a low table, actually, you're going to have this, so you want to kind of prop your camera or your laptop up on some books. This way you are not shooting up into your nose like that.
Right. So those are very valuable tips. Positioning the camera, make sure you have good eye line, you have enough head space. The camera straight forward, making eye contact as if it were a student. We talked about the lighting, right? We don't want to be backlit. We want the light source in front of us bouncing off our face so that we're not backlit, like in this case. And we talked about microphones. Again, Michael, you made a great point about audio being super important. You can have a great film, but if audio is not good, you can understand what this character is saying, it's useless, right?
Right.
And real quick, the last few minutes, we're going to talk about the last few things. I'll keep it really short. Is captions. Why are captions important? The reason why we must have videos with captions, because you might have students with accessibility needs, and the school has taken made videos of high priority of having captions. So we can't upload videos that don't have captions. And so this is why we're pushing forward to either uploading to YouTube or to Screencast-O-Matic or Vimeo. Either of those three will work. And the last thing I want to talk about is standalone videos, which are videos that are uploaded directly to Blackboard. That's a big no-no, because if you upload directly to Blackboard, there will be no captions for your videos. All right, so we're going to talk more about later on in the production workshop on when we're going to do some more hands-on when we do the second workshop, where we're going to upload a video, and then you decide whether you want to move it to YouTube or Screencast-O-Matic, and then we'll make sure that those captions are auto-generated for you, so that those videos have captions, right? And so we always talk about inclusivity. We want to include everyone. We want to make sure that somebody with special needs they're not missing out on what you are saying, and so those captions are there for them. And so uploading directly to Blackboard will create standalone videos, which means that the videos are being hosted in Blackboard and there'll be no captions available.
Right, and I think those captions can help, all users actually. It's just that extra, you're hearing it, you're seeing it, you're reading it. It's that extra kind of delivery that just kind of, hopefully drives it home a little bit better. So you don't have to be, impaired, hearing impaired or something to really benefit from the addition of captions.
That's an excellent point, Michael, because I didn't realize that until when I was working at Columbia, we had done MOOCs. And we had spent, money on these captions, and what turned out was that we made those captions, the SRT files, which are the text, the actual captions, downloadable for students. And what we found out was that the students were downloading the script as a teaching supplement.
Study guide, right? Yeah,
and so
great.
They would go back and make circles and underline key points, and they were using that as a study guide. So another way to think about something you never knew could be a study guide or help students with their learning. We found out that they were actually using it as a material for the class. Okay, so we got 5 minutes. I'm gonna bounce back, Michael. I don't know. I don't know if you have to run, but we want to take a few questions.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm actually I'm in my kitchen here. I'm cooking dinner, so I'll be able to stay and keep the mic
Awesome.
on. And yeah, absolutely.
All right, so we're going to open up for some questions, and I just want to mention that we didn't do too much hands-on, but I am going to stay an extra hour for anyone who needs to get an account going for Screencast-O-Matic, because in our next workshop we're actually going to jump into Screencast-O-Matic. We are video recording. Okay. Any questions? Thank you, Patricia. Nice. Oh yes, right. So public speaking, right? So Patricia, again, you're the expert here, so you can chime in and let us know, right? Pacing yourself as you're lecturing, and it's a big deal of being able to speak in front of an audience. It's not easy, right? With the pressure and everything going on. So, any tips you want to mention as a presenter?
When you were talking about the outlining, that was just music to my ears. You cannot read this, even if you say that the first step is a preparation style outline. You putting it into chunks then, and then you are using that and working with that until, my joke is 3 o'clock in the morning you get up and you can spout sections of it. Now you don't need that whole language, you just need a key word at best, or key phrase, right? Same difference. So that was so one is reinforcing the other, and having done this Zoom now, Zoom, WebEx, all of them, is that I've been teaching public speaking, at least 6 sections and stuff, and wow, I mean, this is not going away. We are in a new norm, so they need these skills. And so some of the things that you were saying, I was like, see, I've been doing that. So I felt so.
Yeah. No, that's excellent. That's a good point. Ed makes a good point too. He's talking about storytelling. It's an art, right? So sequential storytelling, being able to tell stories. And I have cousins who come over and like, man, they're such good storytellers. I wish I could tell a good story like they are. But it's practice, right? We all. History and knowledge gets passed down generation to generation with storytelling. I mean, that's basically, my grandfather, I hear stories from my grandparents and what they did, growing up as little kids, and we pass those on, it's from generation to generation.
That's what Chicken Soup for the Soul says to do for your parents, is to create little stories and put them in a jar. And so every day they get to open up a story from your background and what they've given you. And I did that for my mother. I put them in an envelope, and every day I say, here, this is one story, and every day she could open, because she was down in Florida. Yeah, that's the, and isn't that, those are anecdotes, illustrations, descriptions, explanations. And so that's what we're talking about, is how do you flesh out your arguments or your assertions. Yeah.
Right, right. And just like we said earlier, how we talked about chunking these little stories into little pieces, right? So that's also, and it could be difficult for somebody new to this who, you've been teaching for years a certain way. Now you're being asked to kind of change a little bit of the way you present your content.
Yeah, this is, I need some help with this for sure. Uh, I have a voice, but it goes on for an hour, and
Yeah.
it's for my voices of civil rights, and it isn't a public speaking course where I lead them through all the steps, but they have one speech at the end of the term, so they need the skills. So to really narrow it. And this idea, thank you. I really appreciate that, Michael. Because okay, each little thing. I was just thinking of it as chapters. Okay, here's this one, and now we go to this one, and I guess it's also I find when I look at those, okay, I've accomplished that much.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
there's that kind of that kind of feel too.
Yeah, yeah. Ed makes another excellent point here. It's a language. Once we each can develop individually the fundamentals of our culture and ever expanding, and I can talk to that because, like I mentioned earlier, I used to do a lot of video editing, and it was sacrilegious to do a jump cut. And you go on YouTube now, Michael, right? Michael, you see that? You see how it is now.
You have to do jump cut.
You got to do.
Explain jump cut. I think I know what you're saying, but.
A jump cut is when you basically cut from one shot that has a similar composition to the next shot. So in other words, I'm here, I'm talking, and then I want to cut something else out in the middle, and then I'm here. So when you cut the video, all of a sudden I pop or jump from one side.
Oh, yes. Okay, got it.
I see Ed has a question here.
Hi, I don't have a question. I just wanted to point out that maybe people could consider the fundamentals of composition and illustration and design and apply them to video. One thing I become concerned about is there's been such a focus on the technology and this explosion of, I mean, literally, I don't have to tell anybody in this room just how much we've had to transform into becoming production houses in our bedrooms, our offices, what have you. But I feel that we would really all benefit from a understanding of how sequential art works, taking from all media like film and television and stage and comics and graphic novels, and then applying those to videos. Just like even being here today and thinking more about, like, I don't give that much thought to my sound, or the fact that I've got so much junk on my walls. I could, people are like disappearing into my walls because I have so much stuff on it.
It's so beautiful. Your wall is so beautiful.
Well, thank you. But it just makes me sort of like, I feel like, especially in my department, which is illustration, that we need to remember our craft and then figure out a way to apply it to this new paradigm. And I know you were talking about storyboarding in your department, and I'm thinking back to all the storyboarding I did for advertising pitches and music videos. And it's the same exact thing that we're doing now, except now it's on a much broader and individual scale. And I just wanted to bring that and throw that into the mix as something that we might want to consider going forward to, like, I'm learning about the audio here, but maybe people could focus on other departments and see how we could integrate our departments better to become really comprehensive and effective as a producer of content that is on a video platform.
That makes a lot of sense, Ed. I think no matter how the technology changes, you can't forget a lot of those foundational elements that are going to be, true no matter what. So like basic ideas of composition and lighting and screen direction, screen size, they're going to work whether we're watching a movie or we're watching it on a mobile device. You're still going to have the technique there.
So I have a question. Yeah.
Sure.
From a business perspective, I know that students learn best with audio and video. But when they go out into the workforce, they're not going to have this luxury. How are the best practices to help them assimilate into, I guess, the work environment, where they learn and they know these things, and yet
I'm trying to think of the way you're asking that question, Christine. I mean, why wouldn't they have the benefit of still being able to be, able to look back at some of these visual things that they learned,
They're
they have
just
access to this.
they're gonna be taught new things, and they're just gonna be told, and they're gonna be expected to take notes, and they're gonna be expected to apply them. And so we're training them. So we kind of like, might there be a balance between,
Mhm.
having them learn through videos versus no videos, so that
Right.
they're not shocked when they go
Right.
into the workforce.
Yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying. I mean, I think what Patricia was talking about before too, the idea of public speaking, or like maybe I have a class where we have students present, and what we tried this time, because we weren't in a physical classroom, is that we're presenting through Zoom, and one of the presentations was a dream job interview, where they'd be interviewed by a partner and do this kind of interview, and it turned out that a lot of them said, well, gee, this is where I actually got hired now, so it was a practice, but actually it was the real world. So to try to bring things from a real world perspective and bringing it into a practice session, so that hopefully they'll remember it when they're in that real situation in the office, and be able to kind of dwell back on that.
I
Yeah.
don't know if
Another
this
thing.
makes sense to this,
I'm
but
sorry.
I
Go
was
ahead.
just
Go
thinking,
ahead,
no education is wasted. So any
Yeah.
experience, you're not doing it in this situation, but sure enough, will come a time you go, oh, I can tailor this and fit this in here and there.
Right.
Yeah, I also want to jump on that too, because I've been promoting an assignment more of, we titled it visual or digital storytelling, where the students become the camera person, the director, the editor, all in one assignment, where students, they have to either tell a story, documentary style, and they film and they record and edit, and they do all of that, and they submit the work to the professor. It's a type of work that we call it authentic assessment, because now the students are actually telling you what they know or what they think they know. And what we found out is that a lot of the students, in the format that we use Adobe Spark Video, and so the student only had 30 seconds to tell that story per slide. They had 30 seconds per each picture. They had to talk about it. And so it's like almost like an elevator pitch, and they have to learn that skill to be able to articulate their thoughts to either a business partner or their boss, and be able to express themselves, especially now in the world that we're living, where a lot of professions are in different countries, and now we're forced to communicate like we are now in Zoom or Google Meet or whatever it is, to be able to still deliver our thoughts and ideas in a way that normally I would have to stand in front of Patricia and say, Patricia, hey, how are you doing? I'm reading you. I'm reading Patricia's movements, eye movements, body gestures. That's like a job interview. They see you within the first 5 seconds, the judgment is made already. And so this is a
Right.
new thing that it's a soft skill that students, I feel, have to develop now moving forward as the world gets smaller through these forms of communication.
Yeah, I think the packaging that you use can really enhance your credibility, and the way that you are perceived. If you look bad, people will tune you out. So.
Exactly right. I still got to dress up for my job interview. It doesn't matter. We're meeting through Zoom. I still got to wear my tie, my shirt. I got to be presentable. It doesn't mean that we're not meeting in face to face. Doesn't mean that I can just wear a T-shirt here.
Pajama bottoms on.
Oh my God! I have some of them. One guy's lying on the bed and he's got this T-shirt on, and he's like, I said, no, you can't do. And I said, you cannot wear that T-shirt. And the mother is in the background and she's laughing. And he says, my mom is laughing because she just told me I shouldn't be dressed like that going to a course. And I said, well, this is Zoom. I mean, every job that we're doing is probably going to have, it used to be Dress Down Friday. Well, now, I mean, I know of so many people now, they have a Zoom Friday. So it's still business. And maybe it's not going to be a three-piece vested suit and all the rest of it, but you still have to get that semblance. And I do think, some people say, well, you could be formally dressed in the upper torso and then still be wearing your PJs on the bottom. I think that
The question is
communicates to
more.
you.
the question is less on what to do in a job interview, but more on the pedagogy, on
Oh,
using videos versus non-videos as a learning tool.
Ah,
right.
ah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's definitely a different, yeah, that's a different can of
Yeah,
worms.
it's a whole
I think
whole different fish.
that, the skill, what I tell, students who come through AMC have to take a video production class because, video has always been in advertising. But today, everybody
Again,
can
the
video, no matter
question
what
is,
field you're in, right? You're going to need to be able to communicate through video. So you might be in any kind of organization and you've got to
that's
train
not the
people who are under
question.
you. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry.
The question is, our students, if we are giving our students videos to learn, they're going to get used to learning via videos. And when they go into the workforce doesn't use videos to
Mhm.
teach them. How do we prepare them? Like, what is the best practice in terms of the mix? Like, you know,
Right. So I can understand, right, now that you break it down,
That makes
Christine.
sense, yeah.
So it's also depends on which model you decide to apply in your teaching. If you do, for example, let's say if you do go with the flipped classroom model, where now you're creating videos that students have to watch ahead of time, but they still have to come to the classroom. Okay, that's one way. But now let's say if you're doing an online course where everything is, there's no face-to-face. Everything is asynchronous, right? And so if the student made that decision to pay money, right, to take that course, knowingly that it's an online course, I'm never going to meet, I might never even see the professor, depending on how the teacher presents her material, he might not choose to use video. So it's really a decision based on the teacher and the student, which approach, and you make an excellent point, Christine, which is sometimes we might think that the video might be the best option, and it might not be, depending on what you're trying to say and do with the video. So that's another consideration that we have to take seriously is, is this the best approach? Do I do a video showing students how to change a tire on on a bike? Could it be done another way? So that's also another part that you have to really consider. And then moving on to the other point of what you're asking is, a lot of, now the students have moved on, let's say they graduated and they've taken all classes online. You're saying now they're in the profession, in the field. There's a lot of HR, human resources, where now they're using video to teach. Amazon, I know, they have courses and places like that. But you're right, it might be a different modality. It might not just be video, depending on where you are and where you're working and their approach. So it's a good thought, right, to think about that. Are the students being, forced to only learn through video, and then now they're moving on, and now like, wait, are they going to have trouble learning new things because they just got adapted to learning through video?
Right. I think you have to have that hybrid mix, and you can't discount the social interaction. Obviously, it's just like our students are always lost in their phones. It's like the same thing.
no, that's
Right.
what I'm asking. What is the best practice?
Yeah. Well, to me, I would say the face-to-face classroom is probably going to be the best. But as Jose said, you could use the video as a precursor, as a support tool when they're not in that face-to-face classroom, that they can either use it as a primer where they're coming into the classroom with something already under their belt, so you don't have to explain the real basics. You can get right into the more advanced things. And then there's nothing like obviously the immediate feedback though of being in a face-to-face classroom. And I noticed that through, even if a student asks me a question the same day in email and I send them a video, in a real classroom, I could have told them how to do it right when they were doing it at the moment. And now there's got to be, a 2 or 3 hour turnaround or whatever. So, it definitely changes their progression. And, obviously you want them to be social communicators and not be, inept at, real world communication and just rely on the technology and say, I'll send you a video. Right? So yeah, there's definitely a balance, but I would rather go with a face-to-face classroom, and then my second choice would be a hybridized classroom, and my last choice is a, online, and then the worst I think is an asynchronous online. And I have students who are in my online class. I'm teaching a summer class now, and they're like, "Well, when is our Collaborate meeting?" And I'm like, "Well, this is not a remote class. It's an online, it's an asynchronous online class. It's none, And then on the other hand, when I offer it,
I have an online class too, and for the WebExes, I tell them this is an alternate session. I cannot compel you to do this because this is asynchronous.
Exactly.
But every time I open a unit, instead of having to go through those questions and answers and type it all, I have this and I'm recording it. So if somebody isn't there, they can also watch that in my province to do that. I know because you can't require that of them.
Yeah, you can't please everybody at once, but you have it. I tried that and I said, will you guys come and, we're going to have a lecture. And they were like, the reason why I took an asynchronous course is so I wouldn't have to come. So, I mean,
questions on a Q&A, whatever is, but then I can't help but lecture a little bit when I'm there.
Yeah.
But there's a recording for them to watch.
Right. And if students want to get it, they have it, right? I mean, it's up to them at that point.
Right. Yeah. And or any one of them, he just sent me can I have just an individual session with you? Fine. So I've been holding, and I'm also holding a required office visit. Am I allowed to do that, Jose, online?
Oh,
I mean, I do it in whatever their time is, accommodating my schedule to their time, but that they have to have this office visit with me prior to doing this particular assignment.
Yeah, no, so we're offering, sorry, go ahead, Michael.
I'm thinking required is the key word, because again, the student could say, you know what, I'm in another country. The reason why I took the class is so it can be
yes, but it's on their time. It's not a requirement for everybody. It's a requirement on their time. So if it's 12 midnight, I'm a night owl. That's fine with me too.
Right. That's very magnanimous of you.
Well, all right. Well, I'm still legally okay with the online class.
Yeah, like Michael said, the key word is required, right? Because an online course we can require that. But if you accommodate, like you're saying, accommodating students and say, look, this is really going to help you as a benefit to you, and if you really accommodate them, because again, with online learning, it's really the whole course should be asynchronous. But again, if you do accommodate them, I think it should be okay. If the student, if the student says, yeah, I can meet you at this time, and you're okay with that. But that's the tricky part with online teaching, and this is where now these videos really make the course shine, because otherwise, if you don't have videos in an online course, what else can replace? Now you're going to have the slides, and a lot of the times, the slides that are used, and I see this a lot, the slides that are used in an online course are really the slides that the professor uses to present. So they're just talking points, and then the student is left with slides that are just talking points, and then they have to figure out, you kind of don't get the expertise that you would love to hear from the professor, who's a professional, who knows really about the subject matter, and so it kind of, not to say that an online course, a lot of it is handed off to the students for them to, they have to manage their schedule. It is tougher because they have a big responsibility on their shoulders, where they, not like a face-to-face student where, hey, I have to come in Tuesday and Wednesday, I'll show up. But an online student has to really develop their schedule around their life, job, and everything else that they're working on. And I call these newbies. New students who've never taken an online course before have no idea what's ahead of them. They think it's going to be all easy, but it's really becoming a mature adult where you actually have to manage your time.
It does require somebody who writes well too.
Oh yes. Oh my gosh, and read and make sure they read the instructions carefully, because that's what the most common asked question is, oh, the professor, I didn't know that you wrote that in the syllabus. It's like, it's there for you, so, and so that's why, like Michael mentioned early in the presentation, was that he does a lot of these feedback videos, and doing these feedback videos, but after you become accustomed to them and doing them is like a breeze, because Michael, I see you use it for almost everything. You then answer all the questions.
About the syllabus. I would like to try that. because I've got a video that says it's in the syllabus, but when it's in the written syllabus. So if I could have, I would like to try that in this format and see what I can do.
Oh
with it.
yeah, yeah. You know, it's back and forth of emails. You know.
But,
Yeah.
Recording a
Sorry,
video
my-
syllabus at the beginning, or
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
Yeah. It becomes like a back and forth of emails of students asking the same question, and you know, and I can see that I can also tell a faculty member if it's a first-time online teacher or a veteran online teacher, as the way they describe their instructions in the assignment, you know, step by step, scaffolding the instructions, only because you don't want to get emails, same question being asked over and over, and that right away is a cue letting you know, hey, maybe I could have. And that's one thing that we teach when we're doing a workshop online teaching is how can I write my assignments in the instructions in a clear, precise way that is structured and scaffolded. You know, it's an art. Like,
And constantly we benefit because there's always somebody that says, well, I didn't get this. Okay, let's go back to the drawing board and see how I can. I've got on the left menu a preliminary link before the classes start. So
Yeah.
here is this and here is this, and then I've got an even welcome, read this first. And I've
Right.
got those in both places, and I'll still get the question. I know.
Oh yeah.
it's
So
frustrating.
I just want to ask
Yeah.
a question. It is. It gets frustrating after a while. I just want to ask: does anybody need help getting getting a pro account with Screencast-O-Matic? I guess I can help anyone here who has never used Screencast-O-Matic before.
Can we test it? Can we test it?
Sure. You want to test to see?
Yeah. So how do we get there? Screencast-O-Matic.com.
Yes. So the best and easy way to get an account, I would say, is go into your Blackboard course, and if you go into build content, and I'll share my screen so if you need to see what I'm doing, because for our next workshop, we're gonna get our hands dirty. We're gonna go. We're going to do some recording and some video. You know, we'll start producing our own videos by the next workshop. So I want everyone to be able to have access to Screencast-O-Matic. Okay, so I went to build content.
In where?
Sorry, in Blackboard. If you go into any of your course, maybe your sandbox or your practice course.
If I go into the actual, okay, I'll go to my sandbox. I'm sorry.
Sure, right, the sandbox and build content. Okay, everybody's there?
Not yet.
Okay.
Where is build content?
So build content is when you go into if you go to Blackboard and you find your sandbox or practice course,
Okay.
you click on the course and then you click on the content button on the left-hand side.
Okay. Content
And
collection.
then, not content collection, but just the content area of your course.
Got it. Okay.
Got it?
I got it. I found it.
Perfect. And then right under the banner that says content, you'll see build content.
Okay, I'm going to click on that.
Perfect.
Okay.
And then you'll see the drop-down menu.
Right.
And you see on the almost at the bottom left, you'll see Screencast-O-Matic.
Okay, I'm in.
Oh,
Okay.
Mhm.
You can click on that. And for now, it's asking you to give it a name, right? Do you see that where it says name?
Got it.
You can type there anything you like, video or test.
For just a description or your name?
Yeah, just a name, a title at the top. You can just give it a name, anything, doesn't matter.
Okay. All right, and then just hit submit.
And then hit submit.
Okay.
And like anything else on Blackboard, it drops it at the bottom.
Okay, it came up as video.
Yeah, perfect. So now you see the logo. It's almost like a Target logo but in blue.
Yes, I'm there.
Okay, and then you have the word video, or whatever it is that you typed.
Mm-hmm.
And so you click on the title.
Okay. And create account.
Yes, and there you go. Create account.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, and then make sure that you use your.
I clicked on the title, and all I see is gray now.
Oh, okay. So Patricia, I might have to stick with you and work on that because you might have a blocker there or something blocking it.
Okay.
I think that was Ed that was talking. I'm sorry.
Yes. I have to get my daughter, but I think it just says choose enabled videos, channels, channel recorder. Am I set up now?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. And so now you have an account with Screencast-O-Matic. And just make sure that you choose your FIT email address because it won't take anything other than FIT.
Okay, it signed me up with my FIT email automatically, so I think I'm set.
You're good then, Ed, because it recognized you from Blackboard, so it pulls your FIT email address. It does a handshake between Blackboard, so you're good, Ed. So I got to help Patricia.
Okay,
I have the same problem as Patricia, but I have a phone con at 2:30.
Oh, okay.
How can we get together again before next week?
Okay, Christina, I'll shoot you an email and you tell me when you're available. I'll make time and then I'll do a one-on-one with you. We can get you up.
Thank you so much.
No,
Take care.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
So if you do get the gray screen, shoot me an email and I will sit down with you one-on-one. I can also manually create an account for you. So the beauty of Screencast-O-Matic, and we'll talk more about this in our second workshop, is that depending on your workflow, if you like voice, if you like using YouTube, or if you want the video to go to Screencast-O-Matic, it gives you an option where to host your videos. So that's really what's great. And so we'll cover more of that, the workflow, on the second workshop. We'll do more hands-on, and we'll have everybody create a video on their own. I'm going to send out an email to everyone who participated to do a recording on your own so that when you come into our next workshop, you have a video ready. And then we'll show you how to edit the video, how to splice, how to add text layers. Anything else, Michael, missing? Text layers, music, right, Michael? You can add some music.
Yeah, music and definitely can punctuate the video and kind of cue, transitions and things like that. So I think it's, it's good. There's so many things. I mean, you can add picture, and then again, you don't have to overdo it. I think, a lot of times if the process gets in the way of the message too, if you overdo it, then students might be looking for the next, special effect or something like that instead of really, concentrating on the message. So it's again that balance between the two that make it work.
Exactly.
Is tomorrow's session at 11 the same session?
Oh yeah. So we're doing two. So every workshop, I have two separate times for those who couldn't make it at the morning. The tomorrow's in the afternoon. It will pretty much.
Oh, it's at 11. At 11.
Oh yes.
Tomorrow's the 11th, right? It's the same topic as today.
Okay. Is it worth coming to?
We'll leave it. We'll cover the same topics, but up to you. We'll leave it to you. If you already attended this one, it's not. You don't have to come. But if you want to hang out and again participate, that's up to you. Yeah.
Jose, can I stick around to do the fix the Screen-O-Matic, or do you want me to make an appointment?
Yeah. Let's do it. Let me stop the recording. I think everyone's okay, and I'll help Patricia. And I just want to, again, I want to give a big thank you to Michael Coquino. Isn't he awesome?
I do the clapping hands are not